Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and today I'm doing a sponsored preview of VANEA Guardians of the Eldertree. Before I dive into it, this is a prototype, all rules and components subject to change, and I'll have a link to the crowdfunding campaign down below. In VANEA Guardians of the Eldertree, you are playing a tower defense game where you're playing as guardians that are protecting the Eldertree from a wave of slowly approaching monsters that are trying to lower its health down to 0. Now, there are several ways to play through this game. I will be focusing primarily on the cooperative mode in which you and other guardians are working together to protect the Eldertree, but there's a variety of ways to play it, from altering the game length, adding more bosses or monsters, or how long the game will go, or even playing it competitively against the other players. So while there are a variety of ways to play it, I'll be focusing primarily on the cooperative play. In VANEA, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be playing through rounds, which will take place across these full cycles. In each round, players are going to take actions as they try to build up their own tableau and level themselves up, gathering more elements, becoming more proficient at the elemental masteries, gathering more gear, and trying to prep for the fact that in round 3 over here, as well as in round 8, we're going to be spawning monsters from these various portals around the board. Also worth noting, you can customize the map. This is a recommended starting map setup, but there's hard mode, there's customization, a lot of ways to alter the default playing experience. But in the game, you will be taking actions each round, 3 actions per guardian, in order to move around the board, fight with other monsters, and utilize the various locations at the various spots on the board in order to power up. And there are a lot of locations. I will not be going through every single thing right now, but there are this many different locations to activate all the different effects that you can find there. And I'll show you a bunch of them so you can get an idea of what turns might look like as you play. So I have my starting guardians over here. If the round were to start, I have 3 actions per guardian. Let's go ahead and take an action with Balsar over here. Balsar will start, and he'll start by revealing this location over here. You can see there are some already revealed locations. Again, that's the starting setup for the intro scenario. But over here, we're going to reveal this location. We're going to flip it over. We can choose the orientation, but we also got this. This over here is a treasure chest, which means we can draw the top card of this deck over here and give it to Balsar, and he just got a gem from the bag. These gems are going to help you be able to pay for new upgrade cards, and we got a blue gem, and we'll be able to use that to buy a blue upgrade card at points in the game. This stack full of treasures has a variety of different goodies that will help you out in different ways, but now we can go ahead and rotate this tile to whichever orientation best helps us out. We have a thicket over here. These are strong defensive locations, and they are helpful to orient in ways that will cross the monster's pathway towards the Eldertree, so we're going to orient it. But there's also an element. If we put the element that way, we might be able to walk straight onto it. You know what? We're going to put it that way, and hopefully the enemies will still cross adjacent to the thicket. So we're going to wander onto this zone over here as our part of our first exploration action. Exploration is going to be an exploration and move, and because of that location will allow us to draw another token from the bag. So we have a second item we're drawing. We got a green gem. Again, that'll be utilized over here to gather these cards, although we do need to go ahead and visit the sorceress located over here in order to find that. That's one of the starting setups over here. There are certain key locations such as the smithy and the sorceress that allow you to get upgrades, and the starting setup has those pre-populated on the board close to the Eldertree. If you're playing in a hard mode, they're going to be shuffled up amongst the various tiles. You'll have to go ahead and find them. There are multiple locations that have those, by the way. But over here, that was our first action. We explored and moved. We got that. Now we can go down here. We can get a resource. We can use these to go ahead and buy items. You'll notice over here we have an entire board where you can buy a ton of items, regular items, legendary items, as well as a variety of other decks we'll utilize when we need to, some that you don't want to. But these items, the top row, are going to cost 1. On the back over here, you can see they all cost 1 of those. We're going to go ahead and get our ore and trade it in to get 1 of those items. And you can see what you're buying as you do so. We have armor, we have helmets, and then we have offensive weapons. So you can try to find which item is going to best suit you, which item will help you buy more gear. For example, right now, I already have these blue gems, but I need to actually have the ability slots to be able to get those. So over here, buying 1 of these pieces of armor could be helpful because it opens up armor slots that I can then spend blue gems to get that ability and put it into those slots. So that's going to be what happens with the ore. Back to over here, I should note, as you're going through this, you are supposed to be marking the locations because you can only activate each location once per cycle, a cycle being those 10 rounds over here. That prevents you from just ricocheting back and forth between locations and just picking up the same thing again and again. You are actually incentivized to explore this world. So right now, we have those 2 items over there. We can go ahead down here, or we can actually go to the smithy right now. So let's go to the smithy right now and trade in my 1 ore. I will say if I was playing this game, I would get more ore because the level 2 weapons really help your ability to deal more damage and get more synergies between them. But let's go ahead and gather a weapon so we have a bit more. You know what? Let's gather that armor. We'll gather the armor. In his case, he wants medium armor. Characters have various rewards they get if they get certain things matching what they're looking for. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and grab this, and we'll put it down in our armor slot. We're going to take a character marker to show that he gets +1 defense for that armor. In addition to the regular stats on it, he gets +1 defense because it matches his preferred armor types in that slot. That's going to be a general cycle of a turn. The smithy we do not mark with a cube. You only mark locations with one of your tokens when it's something you get, not various trade-ins. So if you're getting stuff, you mark it. If you're trading it at the smithy, the sorceress, or various other locations, you would not do so. That would be a sample turn right there. I took 3 actions, moving around the board, activating locations as I do so. That's free as part of the movement. That's basically what you're going to do. The other main thing you'll be doing is you'll be going ahead and attacking enemies, but in the first 2 rounds of play, there aren't enemies in play. So let's go ahead and do the same thing with Fist over here. Fist can do the exact same thing. We'll go ahead and we'll explore location. In fact, we'll explore closer to the sorceress because that maybe will allow us to trade things in depending on what we get. We can rotate this that away. Let's go ahead and rotate this so we can go ahead and get a treasure off the bat. We're going to walk in here. We also got a gem. So we're going to get that, which means we once again draw a gem from the bag. This is going to take that gem, put it on our player board, and we got a green gem, so that's going to help us out. We might also want some armor. We mark there, we mark the location to show we've gone there, and I can start heading toward the sorceress, which is where I traded in, but I also need to get more gear anyway before I can benefit from that, so I'll do another explore action, exploring this location to wander into this zone, and we have an ore. We got an ore for that location, so we are also prepping ourselves up to be able to trade things in. And this location, let's go ahead and see what an event might be like. So if we move to this location, we can now resolve an event from the event deck. This event, we would now flip it over, and we have a trader. Do you fancy a trade? We can trade 1 ore for 1. We can trade 1 element for 1 gem. In fact, I might do that. As good as elements are, right now I think the ore might be more helpful for us. So we're going to trade that in, and instead we will go ahead and take 1 ore. That will work our way towards 3 ore, which we can then do to get a level 2 item, which as I mentioned already, is what I prefer to do anyway. We will again mark that location, because that's an event, and then we'll wander down here to see what we get from the treasure chest, marking it as we go. That would be a sample round of the game, and we got a legendary key. Those are very helpful. This is going to be how you get the legendary keys, legendary gear on this side, armor, weapon, armor, and helmet, and those require 3 legendary keys, but you also need to find the legendary chest where you can trade them in. This game is all about exploring the board and finding the locations that are going to work for you as you power up your characters. That is a sample first turn. From there, we would go ahead and move the marker to the next round, and then repeat that before we then move the marker to the 3rd round, which is where you'd see enemies spawning on the board. Enemies will spawn on rounds 3 and on rounds 8. And when you do that, you're going to be rolling a die for those enemies, as well as the location die to see where they spawn. You'll be doing that once per hero, once per guardian in play. So for example, right now, I rolled a 4 and a shield. The shield's good because it means I will only spawn 1 monster instead of 2. Had I rolled the sword symbol, I'd spawn 2 monsters. I'll go to location number 4 over here. And again, prototype, I should note, some of these things are changing. You're seeing some of the standees. I believe there's miniatures as well. I have dice right now that are tracking the portal numbers, but we're going to go ahead and draw a guardian from the bottom of this deck. The reason you draw from the bottom of the deck is on the other side. I draw a monster from the bottom of the deck. The reason you'll draw from the bottom is because we have the corrupted side of the various monsters, bosses and monsters alike, that will come into play as characters take damage and their health is affected. You're going to be adding rot to the board. So, right now we have over here, we have Smasher. This is going to be the character, this is going to be the monster that comes out, which actually works nicely because we also have hunting contracts. Down here we have a hunting contract. There's a concept in the game. You start the game with hunting contracts and you can draw more depending on the location that you go to. Hunting contracts give you a bonus if you are the one to have taken out that monster. So Smasher's going to come onto the board. We're going to put him at location 4 like we rolled. We need to find his token and we're going to put him down over here. and then we're going to mark his health with a little marker based on level 4 over here. They could be 4, 6, or 8, depending on how far you advanced you are in the scenario. Monsters power up as time goes on, so make sure you're powering up or they will eclipse ahead of you as you go. Now monsters have a little elemental tree over here. I'll show you how a round of combat would play out soon. We'll skip ahead to that shortly, but that's basically what this spawning looks like. So again, the turn cycle is you take your turns. Usually you have 3 actions per guardian. Then the monsters take their turns. They have 2 action points per monster that they also are going to use to move and to attack. And specifically, the way they work is if we pretend this monster is over here, monsters try to move towards the Eldertree, and they will attack you with one of their actions if you are around them. Otherwise, they'll simply move. So they will always move once. They might attack with one of their actions. So right now, for example, this monster would attack us and then continue around me to try to make their way towards the Eldertree. That's the way the monster activation works. When you're done with the monster activation, you move the round marker. If you are in round 3 or 8, you spawn monsters. And when you get to the end of this track, you then advance this over here, which is where you will possibly spawn monsters. Possibly spawn bosses. I mentioned that the game is highly variable as far as how you set it up to account for the difficulty. You can set however many bosses you like, which will have specific bosses on the other side. Unlike monsters, they're not drawn from the deck. They are drawn based on the randomized token you place there. You can have a variable number on the same location if you want a bunch of bosses showing up at once. I hope you're prepared for that. It will not be easy. Or you could pace them out, having them show up across multiple rounds. Again, remembering that as you advance this token, the rounds are getting harder. Monsters are rolling more dice. They have more health. Things are just going to get there. Elemental masteries that keep getting added to. The game does ramp up excessively, so you need to make sure you are staying ahead of that curve. That is the game cycle in general. From there, the way the game generally works, again, if you're playing it in cooperative mode, is you are playing until either you finish the set number of rounds you're playing as, and you've taken out all the bosses and monsters, or alternatively, if the Eldertree's health is reduced to 0, you will also lose that way. Well, you'll lose that way. The other way, you win. As far as the Eldertree's health being reduced to 0, the way that works is when a monster ends its turn adjacent to the Eldertree within this zone over here, it will reduce 1 health from the Eldertree. Bosses will be reduced 2 health from the Eldertree. You are able to trade in elemental bonuses you got for killing monsters to power up the Eldertree again, to heal it, but again, those are hard sought, and you'll also want to use those for your abilities within combat, so you need to be mindful as to when you trade in to heal the Eldertree, or ideally trying to keep it from being damaged at all. That's the basic pacing of the game. You take your turns, the monsters take their turns, you advance the round marker until events trigger, and then you either die along the way from the Eldertree's health being reduced to 0, or you are able to successfully win across it all. From there, I'll just go ahead and show you a variety of other elements that we haven't interacted with. Again, I will not be going through every single location. I'm trying to give you a general idea of how this game plays. So for the other elements that we haven't quite interacted with, the biggest one is going to be combat. The way combat's going to work is when you are facing off against the monster. So let's say the monster's over here, and you are attacking that monster. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to weigh up your elemental mastery. So for example, right now, we actually specifically want Fist facing off against the Smasher, because the Smasher has an elemental mastery in green, and Balser's current elemental mastery is in green as well. That's not good, because when you attack the monsters, you are attacking their elemental mastery. If I attack in Earth, I'm attacking their Earth attribute. A strong Earth attribute from the monster means it's going to be very hard for me to power through and hit through that defense, so I can't really do much with Balser right now. Instead, Fist can go ahead and take an action to go ahead and attack. She has elemental mastery of 4 in fire, and his defense in fire, let me just go ahead and pull up his card. His defense in fire, it looks like it is 1. We have a 1 defense in fire, which is actually ideal to be able to take him out. To that end, we're going to go ahead and roll any gear. Let's go ahead and just give ourselves a gear so you can see how this would all play out. We have that. In fact, I'm going to give ourselves another piece of gear because I want to show you how some elements work. So if we put this over here, we have 2 pieces of gear right now. Right now, this gear over here does match one of the types she wants. So Fist would go ahead and gain a +1 damage in that gear because this specifically matches what she wants in that spot. Additionally, she's going to roll 2 dice from this gear because that's what the number shows in the bottom corner, and she's going to get a +1 attack as well because of the fact that when you line up the symbols on matching pieces of gear, these should be over here by the way, when you line up the symbols on matching pieces of gear, you get the bonuses if you have the same shape matching up, a square to a square, a triangle to a triangle, a circle to a circle. As you can see, lots of modifiers you can play with to try to bump your numbers. So we have have a 4 offense over here. We have 1 additional attack from my bonus being matching the gear I want. We have 1 additional attack from having 2 gear with that equipment, and we're rolling 2 dice. I should note, right now, this is not the typical gear we would have at this point in the game, so we are likely to possibly one-shot the monster, possibly, we'll see how it goes, which is not what you'd expect this early. You have to work your way towards this position, but it will happen and it is satisfying. So we're going to go ahead and roll our dice over here, and we got 1 attack. Our defense won't matter unless we're rolling defensively, and right now we're not. So we roll offensively with our 1 over here, our 2, our 3, and then our element over here, which is 4. So we have a total strength of 7 against his default defense of 1. He's also going to roll 1 die, at least right now. As you ramp up, you'd roll additional dice, but right now we're going to roll 1 dice, but we're also going to roll the monster die and check his ability chart. So we rolled that, we got that, he got an attack, which will not help right now. That would only help when he's attacking. We are going to weigh up this against this chart, and it looks like he gets +2 health on that chart, which won't matter because my 7 against his 1 means I'm going to one-shot him. So in this case, you are basically adding up your elemental mastery in the element of your choice that you choose to attack in. As you grow your own elemental masteries, again, you start with 1, but you're going to want to grow them because it gives you a lot more flexibility in the game to actually face off against different monsters that are strong in different areas. If you're only good at one thing and the monster in front of you is very good in that thing, you will have a hard time defeating that monster if you're able to at all. So you're going to add up your elemental attribute, you'll add up bonuses from your weapons, you'll add up synergies from your weapons as well. Another bonus if you're going to go ahead and have the element that your character wants in that spot. You'll also get +1 when attacking from a thicket. I mentioned earlier we have these thickets over here. They operate both offensively, you get +1 attack. They also operate defensively in the game, preventing the monsters from attacking back. Because if we hadn't just one-shot Smasher over there, and we did, so that worked out, but if we hadn't one-shot Smasher, then he'd be able to attack us back as an action, as a response to our attack. But you also cannot get counterattacked when you're in a thicket. Again, thickets are good for a variety of reasons. They're great places to end your turn and set yourself up for offensive and defensive moves. That is how a basic round of combat would play out. Monsters are going to do the same thing, but in reverse. The only major difference with monster combat is they have an elemental flowchart. You choose the element to attack them in. If I'm attacking with Earth, I'm attacking against their Earth attribute. What they're doing is they attack in a cycle. So if he attacks with Earth, he's attacking against my lightning attribute over here, and you go in a circle around the board, always moving to the left of whichever element they are attacking in. So you have less control when you're being attacked by them. That's the main difference as far as how they operate. Rolling against bosses is going to be a very similar arc over there. Bosses come into play with more health, and they'll also be rolling their boss die as well, making them more challenging. Their abilities are stronger, they have more health, and they'll be rolling their boss die. And again, if we get too corrupted over here, you'll be facing off against an even stronger version of that boss until you can clear the corruption. That's going to be the way combat works, which again is a big part of the game. It's the main thing you'll be doing aside from moving around the board and upgrading your character. So, we've covered items over here. We have different types of gear with different bonuses that they'll provide. Each gear also opens up slots, so we have 2 item slots right here. Those item slots we can now trade in matching gems. When we go to the sorceress, we can trade in matching gems to get those pieces of gear because we have those slots opened up by our items. So this is going to give you a lot more flexibility in the various spells you're going to have access to. Spells are going to come in a variety of methods. They're going to have you spending your mana on this track over here when you have a spell, and that's going to give you defensive bonuses, offensive bonuses. It's going to give you things that augment your attacks. It's going to give you things that give you spells that deal damage to all the monsters around you. So it's going to be ranged spells, offensive spells that are part of your action, and then as well as defensive or even movement flexibility. A lot of different things will come in these piles of spells. There are giant piles full of spells over here. As you attack, you'll also be bumping up on these tracks. Will give you a variety of bonuses. You'll get these cards from this bonus over here, which are strong cards giving you strong abilities over here. You're also going to have your elemental die. This is going to be another die that's very, again, you roll this, you're basically guaranteed a minimum of 2 hits on this die. So using that, again, is very useful. So even when you're attacking in combat, even when you miss, you will slowly be ramping that up, which gives you those nice, powerful turns. So even when things aren't going your way, eventually the tide will turn. Hopefully you are alive enough to manage to see that through. Other things to note, we have events that you've seen over here. We have our monster contracts for when you get to draw more monster contracts, and those come in either categories or specific monsters that you want to hunt down. We also have companions. As you move up, as you get a mastery in any element, which again, players start with 1 mastery, and then you can go ahead and find the companion's matching lair. These are specific matching lairs you'll have to hunt around the board, and some of them might not even be in play because you don't use all tiles game to game. So if you want to be sure to have a companion, you can only have 1, but if you want to be sure to have a companion, then you want to go going to want to bump up those elemental masteries so that you're more likely to be able to find one that can help you out. You can spend gems to power up your companions. So gems over here will power up the companions' abilities, helping them help you. Additionally, there's something called blighted gems, which you'll draw blighted gems from the bags at times. You did not see me do that, fortunately, but there are here we go. Here's a blighted gem over here. When you draw these, if you have 3 of these, you're going to be draining 1 life point every single round, so you want to be very mindful of those, but you can feed them to your companions to still power them up, and it gives you a kind of way to release that power out into the world. Other things of note, we talked about our boss board, our time track, we talked about corruption. As you take damage, you're going to be putting corruption onto the board, you're going to be moving up the corruption track, and monsters will start spreading corruption. Keeping in mind that bosses always spread corruption on the board, and that can cause a problem. As it moves its way towards the ElderTree, it's going to cause problems for you. Players can collect resources from the board from various locations, and trade them in at other locations to go ahead and heal rot in the game, which both resets the rot when you've entered the negative state over here, when this slowly moves up to the end of the track. That's when monsters are going to power up. You're going to be advancing that every time you take damage, and the monsters are then going to flip to their opposing side and have stronger attributes and come into play that way until you're able to reset that, which again requires going to locations, getting various items, and trading them in at other locations. That is the basic idea of VANEA Guardians of the Eldertree. There's a lot of small other details to get into, but the general arc is you are playing a tower defense game. If you're playing in the fully cooperative mode, you're playing a tower defense game against a horde of invading monsters. There's also going to be bosses that show up, and the bosses kind of represent the main cycle and pacing of the game. That's going to help you determine how long and how difficult, and also how much character growth you're going to see across this experience. Your goal, you and the other Guardians at play, you want to power yourselves up in order to be able to make sure you can deal with the monsters that are coming your way. This little setup you saw me do, that is a powered up me against a non-powered up monster. You want to make sure you stay ahead of the curve. You need to move around the board. You need to collect items, get your hands on ore, get your hands on element, get yourselves new spells. You're going to have magic potions, mana potions, and health potions, which are going to be essential. As you start getting more spells, you'll be spending more mana. You want to utilize the spells against the monsters that are weakest against that. Spells also have an elemental preference as far as who they're going to hurt or help the most as you play through them. You're trying to power yourselves up, keep the ElderTree alive, get more spells, use the abilities of the ElderTree. We haven't talked about those. As you take out monsters, you'll be tracking them on this board, and when you take out a full set of that element, you'll also get powered up there. You're doing all of this as you try to see whether you and your fellow players are strong enough to keep the ElderTree alive. I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Code. This has been a sponsored preview of VANEA Guardians of the Eldertree. You can check out the campaign at the link down below. And until next time, I hope you have a good one.